Art is an ever-changing concept that has evolved and expanded throughout the history of human existence. What began as cave paintings or engravings and sketches made on various tangible objects in nature has since then expanded through forms of art defined by visual, textural, abstract, musical, and even through storytelling and narrative-driven elements, which add further nuance to the purpose and delivery of a message or theme to an artwork. All of the aforementioned are set in steadfast association as being considered art. In stark contrast, however, video games have a difficult time with being categorized and recognized as a form of art by the public eye, and more often by those who associate video games with just brain rot.
Are they gonna become violent just by playing Grand Auto Theft and Halo in these games?
What?
Or a form of entertainment and nothing more. There are multitudes of exemplary video games which are more than capable of defying such negative perspectives, but in this video, I'm going to focus on the SOULSBORNE franchise. And for the record, my argument is not solely based on the fact that these games are visually stunning and very much immersive in their dark fantasy worlds deprived of normality, or the epic and beautiful music integrated into the game.
Let's be honest, I never cried to music. I would never cry.
And not only because Hidetaka Miyazaki managed to influence a subgenre based off of these games, beyond those tangible elements to the experience of gaming is a more powerful and complex tool to game design, which can truly reach the player or audience. The best notions to art can be a means of delivering a message and being grounded on philosophical or virtuous concepts, which can challenge human behaviors. The SOULSBORNE franchise is a testament to such an approach, and its canvas of tragic worlds layered with intriguing stories and characters are further strengthened by its grounded emphasis in delivering philosophical perspective. However, the catch to appreciating a game like this, well, you've got to go through the motions.
If, like the others, you're fool enough to play the champion, we'll face death. Enough death to leave you broken. Time after time.
There is no discussing the heights this franchise has achieved without mention of their creator. Hidetaka Miyazaki directed the SOULSBORNE games from Demon's Souls, the Dark Souls trilogy, Bloodborne, Sekiro, and the one to hit the mainstream in 2022, Elden Ring. Bloodborne would be From Software's first game to be nominated as Game of the Year in 2015, where Sekiro and Elden Ring would actually take that title. Miyazaki started as an unwanted coder for From Software in 2004 and would go on to become the CEO of the company in just 10 years. That alone warrants high praise within Japanese work culture, which is a conversation in and of itself. This success was made possible through his rather controversial approach to game design. Recall artists of the past who created movements through art, like Claude Monet with Impressionism. Yes, I am making this comparison. Miyazaki is an auteur in the gaming industry, who found success by not only creating a series of games that deterred itself from the traditional game design norms, but set the golden standard for innovation and difficulty. So what exactly then is traditional game design? Accessibility is an ever-growing and crucial consideration for a lot of games. No matter who you are, there will always be an integrated mechanic in the game or settings for your benefit. This aspect is mainly seen with how a game handles available options to reduce or tamper with difficulty for a player's convenience. The SOULSBORNE franchise, however?
No.
The sole and very identity to these games is the set difficulty, and that's not something that is keen to change anytime soon. In concern for those with physical and mental limitations though, the Act Man puts it quite well in terms of dividing the fraudulent argument that coins difficulty in FromSoft games as direct inaccessibility.
Unless you are physically or mentally incapable of playing video games at all, let's not toss around this bullshit idea that difficult and inaccessible are two words that mean the same thing. For your consideration, I will now put the relevant synonyms up on screen.
Even more in relation to controversial game design, storytelling as a whole is portrayed much differently than traditional media, to say the least. The way they're told are from a younger Miyazaki's lenses. In an interview with The Guardian, Miyazaki actually reflects and opens up about his childhood and what storytelling was to him. He reveals that he grew up tremendously poor. His office worker parents couldn't afford books or manga, so he had to borrow whatever he could find and work with what he could. And he states that he was a keen reader, just not a talented one. Often he'd read passages of text he couldn't really understand, and so would allow his imagination to fill in the blanks using accompanying illustrations. In this way, he ended up with works beyond his reading capabilities. He says, "I found so much joy in those stories. It was a rich reading experience, even though I was technically never really reading." In this way, he felt he was co-writing the fiction alongside its original author. The thrill of the storytelling process really never left him. So yeah, if you really think about it, these non-linear, convoluted-ass stories are because Miyazaki is very based and he thought to himself, yeah, I had fun reading when I was a kid. Like, dude, you weren't even reading. You were seeing things. Okay, sorry. So how does his methodology to storytelling reflect and show itself with each of these games? These epics aren't told in a linear fashion, and they do their best to deviate from spoon-feeding any exposition to the player. Rather, the game design on all fronts serves as a puzzle with pieces scattered all over the map to make the whole, from NPC interaction to item descriptions, and the world the game is set in from a visual experience. This incentivizes a unique sense of immersion and warrants players to attempt to connect the dots throughout their journey to get the full picture. Easier said than done, admittedly. Many just go to lore videos made on YouTube. So we beg the question, what moved Miyazaki towards this direction of game design? Now we can get into the philosophical grounds the franchise aims to deliver. The image the franchise has is often misconstrued by the general audience, seeing them as only games that are made to be extremely difficult for no reason. Yeah, I was getting my shit tossed. Oh my god! Miyazaki quite literally expresses the opposite sentiment and offers a new perspective to both view and play the game as. In an interview with The New Yorker, his view on death within the franchise is a feature. He states, "I just want as many players as possible to experience the joy that comes from overcoming hardship, death and rebirth, trying and overcoming. We want that cycle to be enjoyable. In life, death is a horrible thing. In play, it can be something else. To be triumphant and to connect our own dots and to find our own resolve after conflict, it's a beautiful thing which I believe we don't take note of enough in our own individual lives. These games are just an outlet to that philosophy and give it a unique poetic justice like no other." To further expand on the truth that these games aren't just gamer rage bait, a study from Uppsala University in Sweden examines user experiences and how the Soulsborne games have a positive psychological impact through resilience, overlapping how players cope and strategize when faced with adversity. An integral component to the study was made through the lens of self-determination theory and self-efficacy theory. Self-efficacy theory posits that individuals' beliefs in their ability to succeed in specific situations or accomplish tasks can influence their motivation and behavior. On the other hand, self-determination theory proposes that individuals strive for growth and fulfillment, satisfying basic psychological needs such as autonomy, competence, and relatedness as critical drivers. And come to think of it, it begs a certain question over the theme of human consciousness in which factors pressure. Who is the type to remain relaxed and focused with an open mind despite facing adversity? Who is capable of using defeat as a source of strength for the future? And even better, who can embrace each failure and use them as stepping stones to achieve success? Finally, how does somebody crumble under the weight of pressure? And what vital pillar within one's core belief system was responsible for their collapse? Was it their conviction or their ego in believing success was tangible without having foreseen the possibility of failure? Oh shit! And you see, interestingly, this philosophy can be used as an approach to game design, and it kinda sets up the perfect layup as a means of using artistic expression for the player to interact with fundamentally. Now I'm gonna wrap up this section with Robert McKee's quote about the dynamic between character and pressure. True character is revealed in the choices a human being makes under pressure. The greater the pressure, the deeper the revelation, the truer the choice to the character's essential nature. Moving forward from that are two final expressions of game design which go hand in hand with one another and hammers down my thesis of at least this particular franchise being art. That is the archaeological lenses of influence and history represented through the games, which make for the atmosphere, aided by thematically impactful visuals and music. A paper from the University of London brings the concepts of traditional archaeology into the conversation of archaeogaming, a term coined by Andrew Reinhard. In short, you do the archaeological studies within the game, or draw its parallels from previous archaeological sites, may they be related to real-world settings or fictional ideas. Art in all mediums can be considered a melting pot of cultural influences and multitudes of points in history. The Soulsborne games primarily take place in medieval Europe fantasy settings, except for Sekiro, which is more of a fantastical representation of Japan's Sengoku period. The game also serves as something of a love letter to Miyazaki's culture and heritage, and that is done through the retelling of Japanese folklore. When it comes to thematic elements within each of these games respectively, a good chunk of them draw parallels from Kentaro Miura's Berserk, considered the magnum opus for dark fantasy manga to date. Some characters have a tendency to replicate the main protagonist of the manga thematically. Other visual elements are very much standout influences on a design consensus too. There's even some homage to Berserk's Eclipse in Dark Souls 3. Yikes. A final notable mention through Archaeogaming is Bloodborne's Lovecraftian twist. Deviating from medieval fantasy, Miyazaki delves into the realm of Lovecraftian influence through eldritch horrors in a gothic world. Also, the Mark of the Hunter in this game heavily resembles the brand of sacrifice from Berserk. As an avid Souls veteran, there's nothing better than immersing myself with all of the aforementioned in the respective games, which leads us to Atmosphere. And here's what you need to remember. This is a canvas I'm talking about here, featuring different strokes, varieties of mediums, styles, etc., made with a diversity for the player to experience and enjoy differently in each of these games respectively. Atmospheric assemblage is so important. It's less about the quality of delivering and excelling in only one aspect of game design, more so about having each element to the immersion of gaming build from one another to create the totality of experience.
Sensational.
And think about it. Imagine Hollow Knight was the exact same game, but they took away all the characters that you meet throughout your journey. Hello, Gro. Sorry. What about a Dark Souls game that had boss tracks that just don't line up with the tone of the spectacle of the fight? I can't put down the cup. Can't put down the cup. I can't put down the cup. Take a look at these two. Imagine a game where they have like zero lighthearted interaction between Kratos or Joel. Suddenly you forget why you enjoyed their stories or cared for the character and interactive dynamic at all.
Ellie, that ain't for kids.
Whoa! How the hell would he even walk around with that thing?
For my Dragon Ball Z video game enthusiasts, y'all already know we've been fed the same story through several iterations since like 2001. Yet, each game does something uniquely different that gives each of these titles their unique strengths.
He's taken innocent lives again and again. And my best friend, Krillin. It's over! Freedom!
You already know Sean Schimmel cooked. He'll never not cook. Y'all have no idea how much weight that carried for me as a kid. The latest example that comes to mind is Sparking Zero, and as a means of storytelling, look at me in the eyes and tell me it isn't half-baked with the abundance of slideshows to work as a passage of time.
It's a very legitimate complaint to say like, hey, at this price, I would expect the game not to just have slideshow cutscenes.
As a trade-off though, the gameplay alone is probably the most immersive to exist within the anime fighter genre alone.
Beefing with a child, chill. Jesus Christ. What? What the fuck?
But I digress. Tangent aside, you guys might see the point I'm making here. These games would not be the same, and they could still potentially perform well, but in hindsight, there's a certain charm and emphasis on the overall immersion, which would be taken away from you.
That would be ass.
So where it matters most, there has to be a world which can properly reflect the story from a visual standpoint, down to its greatest mysteries which can be hidden in plain sight. Voice acting and characters can further fill that role where necessary to deliver a more personal grasp of immersion to the player.
Goodbye, and stay safe.
And we're pleased to see you safe. May the flames guide your way.
Complex but intricate gameplay from a mechanical level to its philosophical core is another layer of immersion as we know it. But there is one final element which weaves itself into these masterfully designed compositions that has a unique place as a tool of atmospheric assemblage. Hey yo DJ!
Play mine.
Of the different elements to artistic expressions, I've mentioned ranging from storytelling, visual aesthetics, and philosophy as a means to have an artwork interact with its audience. The execution and utilization of music is what solidifies this series as art, and I mean, call it glaze, I don't care. But dare I say it's high art in gaming. To amplify the sensation of an epic clash between the player and boss battles, a grand orchestra of dark medieval classical or neo-romantic music mends the tension between the player and the game together. The composers who are most familiar with making each of the soundtracks are Nobuyoshi Suzuki, Yuka Kitamura, Motoi Sakuraba, and Tsukasa Saito. I'm sorry if I butchered the names, I tried. Each specialize in their unique styles and offer diversity and tone in essence of each boss fight. Truth be told, a lot of fan-favorite boss fights probably wouldn't be as popular as they are now if they weren't backed by some of the greatest orchestral compositions to have ever graced a video game. Seriously, the greatest tracks just so happen to synchronize its tempo with the in-game events of a boss battle, making it all the more immersive and memorable. Context to a boss fight matters just as much too, as not all bosses require a loud, nuanced, and dramatic orchestra in the background. Some can match the whimsical nature of an encounter. Others can be somber and are composed to match the exact tone for the fight at hand. It's beautiful what these games have been capable of achieving in the last decade, and they've stood the testament of time without folding to the plague that is the AAA modern gaming model, which can be a video for another time. You know it, I know it, it sucks. From Demon's Souls to Elden Ring, this franchise has displayed an interest in delivering the senses of art to its players. Sound, through a compassion to share a musical interest to the player. sight, with the world the player sees as they traverse through them. In a way, there's a sense of touch and textility, as the land's aesthetic isn't gonna strictly remain coarse and ruins. It can also be soft and gentle at times too. Last, there's the empathetic sense to these games. In its very nature, they're meant to evoke emotions from you. Curiosity, excitement throughout your conquest, irritation and anger. Satiating that feeling of revenge after dying to a boss dozens or even hundreds of times. You're dead! Depression when you learn about the story at hand. Being in awe when you discover the lore and mythos of the world and their iconography you didn't know the first time around. And the roles of destiny and fate for allies and adversaries that will mostly take you back to feeling depressed again. And so you see, what's crazy is, I think the happiest you'll feel playing these games, aside from finding a new cool and flashy weapon to try out throughout your whole playthrough, or a set of armor that sparks something within you.
Hello? Oh, nice. That's what we're gonna do? Alright then. Dead.
Oh, I'm getting I survived!
Behind you. To your right.
It's like some Scooby-Doo shit.
It's gonna be when you beat the game for the first time, and the problem with that is you can never relive that same feeling again. Those who have played these games and know, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The thrill and mystery of going through these games the first time around is really nothing like I've ever experienced on any other form of entertainment media ever. Deadass, like when you beat one of these games for the first time, you're gonna be feeling like this every time.
This shit means something to me, man.
That said, I tend to replay these games multiple times before I'm like, you know what? It's time to play the next FromSoft game, and that is a reoccurring and very vicious cycle, and I've come to enjoy it. That's how I was really introduced to these games more intimately. I endorse anyone out there who is willing to go through a hell of a challenge to pick up the controller, mouse, whatever the hell, and, you know, give it a try. Why not, right? It won't hurt.
Think fast, Chuckle Nuts!
Oh my god!
She told me she got her GED. Anyways, that's all I gotta say for this video. It might hit Tony Snell numbers, but I'm really hoping otherwise, because I do have a lot more videos that I would love to create and share with y'all. If I had to leave y'all with one thing by the end of this video, whether you believe in video games being art or not, or at least this franchise, whether you like it or dislike it or don't know it, keep pushing forward. Don't give up at the first encounter of adversity, and don't negatively stigmatize all instances of failure, because when you do evidently succeed, you'll know by that the end you're capable of growing and reaching new heights. That's a great thing, no? Alright, y'all. Take it easy.
Wait, am I good? Yes, I am.
What the fuck? What?